Okay, we're going live. I'll go through and I'll edit the live stream title. Okay. And not so rushed today. And I've got my I'll say 2. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, and I'm going to get a little bit. Okay, and I might have to grab that mouse too. Let's okay. And if you're out there, give me a sign and just say something on chat, just to know that things are going okay. Everything looks at this end to be running correctly. Okay. I can't tell if that really is if that's stretched or probably a little bit for the 16:9 presentation. And it says one playback, but I don't have any concurrent viewers showing, which is fine. I'm going to start catching up in my morning too. And I got a notification that a keyboard came through, which is great. It wasn't for me. The one that's coming from me is going to be a little bit longer time. I can share that. Just getting some stuff. And I think this will actually drop into the Starfield screensaver eventually for the Windows 3.1. Well, I'll take a look over things and doing good there. Okay, and I have one concurrent viewer. That's what it's saying. Still just one playback. Average watch time of a second. So okay. Let me see what is out there. Heck, I might even take those off. Oh, sleep crystals in my eyes. Yeah, there we have the star field. And okay, showing 2 playbacks, but 0 concurrent viewers again. Average watch time of 5 seconds now, at least. I just don't know how YouTube shows their information a lot of time anymore. I've had no other close human reaction yet this morning, so I've got to make sure I'm alive. Okay, what was the topic there? Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I'm just reading a lot of the interaction that Tim Clark in the UK. He's and of course he's been on the VCF news group for a very long time as well. He's going through and supplying his expert answers and responding to people on the VCF Facebook group. Wow. Okay, I'm just about finished up reading all the Facebook messages and everything else that popped up since I was here last night. Okay. Yeah, and Jose is even showing the PS/V Vision 2408 that I was informed of by someone being very helpful about, might have even been a week ago or so. No, it's been a while, and I should have acknowledged that a little bit better, but I didn't. But okay, good. We're getting some comments now. Mr. Museum. First name of David. And YouTube messes up my moniker once again. I would like to have it as all one word together. IBM Museum. So, but we've got 6 playbacks. It's listed still as 1 concurrent viewer, and then YouTube on their little graph at the bottom has got the little indication currently of 2, and then dropping back down again. I'm not sure exactly. And then we've got Chris on. And I had a chance to get up a little bit, get in before what would be 10 a.m. start of this. And I thought about going through, and I got my little tweener system set up last night, and I could have connected it to the speaker system and had it remind people of the stream a little bit sooner, and I can certainly do that in the future, just to remind people that it's, the live stream is queuing up. It's going to go live. Yeah, and there's lots of grass to cut here around too. My brush cutter is not working. It's not really holding the idle, and I think I got to get in there a little bit deeper. I hope water didn't get into the oil, because it had been sitting out. And here in New Mexico, we're going to have an interesting thing, because if we, yeah, I haven't made any announcement yet about that as well, Chris, but I will. But here in New Mexico, yeah, we want to cut down the grass after the rains to kind of get it to where it's not dried out later on, because of course it's going to be it gets to be a little bit of a fire hazard, and thankfully my mom has she's had someone come in and got a lot of the what was the long grass cut down by her driveway, so that it doesn't get too dry close into the house. But I'll have to really attend to some other stuff as well. And we should have the deer eating that enough, but they're around, but they don't. That's too much meal for them, I guess, of going through to eat the grass. And yeah, but as you see, I've got the Starfield going behind me, and the of the Bald 57 SLC 3, and that's the 75 megahertz CPU in that 16-bit data and 24-bit addressing scheme. And what that was is the power supply had gone out on me, and I left it plugged in overnight. And since these Model 57 and even Model 56 power supplies, they go through and they have circuits in them that are live full time, and it went out. And this is a power supply that I ordered. I do have a few more around. I need to go through and test what's good, what's bad, so I can go through and know when I have substitutions and get on to the point where learning a little bit more about how to fix these things. And I did get in my industrial, and I showed that on video. I've gone through and I've unlocked it the same way I had where as I was interacting with the seller before the sale, before I picked it up, I'd sent the diskette in the pack that I have here. In fact, I still have the diskette in here, I think. But I had sent that over to them so they could run the diskette on the system, because they weren't able to access the lock case. And right as it came in and they went to check, the system wouldn't power up anymore. And it's got the power supply on it. Is out as well. I've got that diskette really in there, I guess. But I intended them to be able to run that diskette, and they didn't have a chance to tell them a little bit more of running the system information tool, which I have here. And I wanted to get this system running because that's my development machine. I need to get the software off on to get the. I have the software. I have the Visual Basic elsewhere, but I don't have the program listing as I've gone through and developed it of my WinSit. And I want to go through and work with the code a little bit more, just for the fact that it's funny to me that I'm not having as much issues with the code as what I would expect. And I wanted to see how I have that how I had that organized. In particular, some of I was looking over some of the routines last night. In fact, let's go through. Let's view the code, because I had code in here about for these ports, these I/O ports, and of course from Windows I'm having to do a DLL plugin basically that allows access to the ports, and with Windows 3.1 that's not too bad. Windows 95 will probably allow it pretty well, but of course on the Windows NT side I don't know if I'll have quite that success. But the code that I've got in there, I've had trouble otherwise, and that's the funny thing from the DOS setup, where the ports aren't blocked or anything else, and it's more of the timing issues and things like that. And some particular machines, I'm learning some of the quirks about how they react to some of these calls. But there's my little routine for the microchannel slots, going through and putting in a grid setup of the POS ID or the adapter ID, and then going through the POS values, which I don't have populated now, and I'll probably change that arrangement a little bit too. And then listing if it's empty, if it reports a FFFF. That was one of the things I wanted to look at a little bit more. And I was also looking at I'll have to look at the let's see, I think it was, and this will automatically show the code. There I do all my declarations. Visual Basic. Yeah, there's the in fact, I should still check if they're around for that, for the DLL that does. Here's more input and output of and this is actually where I'm retrieving and I'm going through and I'm blindly checking for the extended CMOS, and I can probably tighten up some of this code to where it can react depending on whether that extended CMOS is detected or not, or whether it's even a microchannel system in the first place for getting that CPU information. And then I've got for the extended BIOS data area, and I'm going through and I'm making some assumptions there, because the ISA malls of the PS2s, they go through and they have the data stored in different sections of the extended BIOS data area, depending on the model. And it looks like for a lot of that anyway, I've got that code stuff commented out. It's in green, and just having the remark character at the first point to comment it out. And then if I don't get it, if I'm not able to retrieve it otherwise from the extended CMOS or the extended BIOS data area, then going into the win flags. And this is what the Windows environment itself, that user interface, sets up for the system of figuring out what the CPU is, and going through and this analyzing that down, going through case else statements to determine what the CPU that's reported and whether there's a math coprocessor or not on there. And I was looking at the some of the stuff, the routines for there. I'm getting the planar IDs, and even going through for being trivializing that some of these systems, whether they're running Windows 3.0 or 3.1. I mean, the Model 50 021 being a 286 CPU, 10 megahertz, and certainly it's able to run the Windows 3.0 and things like that. Probably 3.1 for that 286 mode, but then not able to run, of course, the later stuff, the Windows for work groups or anything like that. But going through and narrowing down the planar ID that's reported back to what model it is. And of course, later on, I'll have to go through and make sure that this code does work correctly on those models. It does get the planar ID. And even for the Hypertech upgrade, I was having that on my Type 2 Model 80, the 28 megahertz model, and the in those instances, if you have the cache on it, the planar ID is not reported correctly. And even then, I think I have still the old values in here of the Model 80, and I'll probably have to check to make sure that Peter went years ago. He listed them, but he had the 16 megahertz and the 20 megahertz, had those inverted, and I've got to make sure that I've got them in there correctly. That's the link to the planar ID. Okay, just making sure that shows up. It went through and it highlighted my username. It thought that I was referencing my username, so it'll be interesting if that link works or not. It shows that it does. It highlights and everything else. It's funny though that with it together, that YouTube, and I've heard that in you can effectively have a space in in giving a Gmail address, and it ignores the space. It goes through and concatenates the all the address pieces to account for the space. So if you had like your name in a Gmail address, you could have a space between the first and last name, and it'd still be to where somebody could send you an email with the way that Gmail recognizes that. But let's look. I want to look to see. Okay, the 16 megahertz is FEFF. And I think I have it updated on that page well enough. Yeah, so it is inverted here still in my code, which is not surprising because I haven't updated that, and that's the main thing I'm doing at this point, is getting all the code and everything updated from what I've learned since I was writing some of this stuff. And these are inverted. Big old heavy Model M. got to get in my lap. And then that one is an FD. So we'll go through and it's not the best mouse pad for what I have here. But I've got that updated. And I was even thinking of doing a video last night. I didn't for the time frame. Had some interesting correspondence going on. And but let's see, here's for the planar ID. And I'm checking all that blindly. I'm just throwing the values to the port, which shouldn't really matter too much. It'd be almost nice if the planar ID was held in extended CMOS, and then I could go through and work with it. And maybe I'll go through and I could, I might use that kind of as a storage area, or use some areas that are not or underutilized for that. See, there's the keyboard flags or keyboard info, get configuration, and see, this is getting that looking at the or this is the get configuration call, and where it goes through and gets all what's called the feature bytes of the get configuration interrupt call. And that's just going through and breaking it down into checking the bits on whether it's microchannel bus, whether it's dual bus, what the system reports for that get configuration call. And I do have, I don't know why I've got the webcam out there. I've got my, of course, the first edition that like Chris has, and then the second edition. And there's still, I mean, there's a little bit of difference in width, quite a bit of difference on the usage for me. I've gone through, and this is relatively dog-eared, but all that, I'm trying to think if, just for a reference, that get configuration, that's interrupt 15 hex C0 hex. It's bad when you know interrupt calls by memory. And interrupt 15 general services, function C0 hex return system BIOS configuration is on page 648 of the first edition. Switch to protected mode and everything. Wow. Okay. So there, on your first edition UNPC book by Frank Van Gilhuey, there's the page 648, the return, all those values. And even it's funny that I've gone through and I've got corrections in there that I've penciled in. In fact, you know, AT or ESDI bus, and I've put in EISA, of course, in there. And really, actually, that's a dual bus. It does happen that the AT side is correct, but that'll be whether it's a dual bus machine, like the gearbox stuff, or the later mixed expansion slots of the microchannel or PCI, or PCI and ESIA. So yeah, I've got it marked as whether it's a dual bus. And in fact, oh, okay, and actually that pin is wrong, because what that means is that bit is, if it's set to a 1, it's a microchannel bus. If it's 0, it's actually anything but a microchannel bus. So my correction is effectively correct. That's a typo. They've put an ESDI in there. But that just means a non-microchannel bus. And then I've got it pinned out here for, if it's 0, I'll have to go through and review that, that it's a dual bus. That may be for if it's actually a 1, it's a dual bus, is probably the more correct thing. So I've got to still do some corrections, but I have some unused or unknown functions on what those are as far as the calls and everything else, and quite a few more pin marks here as far as when Frank Van Giljoe went in there and marked its unused or unknown function. I went through and I've elaborated a little bit more. And it'd be interesting to see if this stuff made it to the second edition or not, of where that stuff, because I need to go through and apply those corrections in the second edition as well. And let me go through for marking dual bus. It's 1, 0, and that just means non-dual bus. Okay, for a good example of kind of the code that I'm digging at there, there's another call I do about the return extended BIOS data area, the segment, and I do that. I'm going to just have to remember page 648. And of course I do mean to, in fact, I've got that as an interrupt call too. I'll do, here's the for the CPU that the CPU information I went over earlier, and it lists, I still have to populate a little bit of the chart. For where where the various systems hold that data of the CPU, whether if it's in the extended BIOS data area, I've got to update that chart a little bit. And the C0 get configuration call. And this is for the get configuration interrupt call that I've got shown on there, a little bit laid out pretty well for all that. And I don't want those okay, I can probably minimize some of those message windows. And but yeah, that's the little breakout of the code. I wanted to get this machine back in operation a little bit more because, and I need to do the video on it of the And yeah, we want to do yes to saving changes. Because this has that system information tool, the PIF set up for running it from the Windows. I wanted to compare what the IBM original is, of course, to the code that I'm trying to write. And it, you know, showing on this first screen of whether what the adapters are that's identified, and then on this screen having the POS information, that POS 0, POS 1, POS 2, POS 3 of being shown in relevance there, that B5, FF, FF, EE, and then showing the COM port address even from within that, but not showing it elsewhere in the system information tool window. And of course, trying to mimic the hotkeys and everything else to the original for when I go through and work with it. But you know, it shows just the number of parallel and serial ports here in the system information tool. Doesn't show any further detail as far as addresses or anything else like that. And you know, just me going through and trying to mimic the data as it's presented there to what the original system information tool, with also some updates, and going through and doing the like the SCSI information is going to be really probably pretty challenging for the IBM SCSI. Going through on just trying to mimic all that, determine how it does with the system control blocks. There's that CPU information, the planar ID at the very bottom, that system board POS ID. And I've got to get through and do the capture the BIOS of the model 56 and 57s. I haven't captured all that stuff, archived that stuff, and get figuring out all the revisions and everything else for the boards that I have, and do that with operational systems, since now that I have them running again. So, we're 10:47, so we're getting down into the last 10 minutes probably that I do the live stream. I've apologized for not really responding too much. Otherwise, haven't had a whole bunch of messages in the chat window, but to address. But Chris did prompt. He said, "I've got company coming." So it's going to be a week from now. Chris and I, you know, Chris being Chris Retrotech, Retrotech Chris, get it in the correct order. We're going to be visiting the VCF East in New Jersey, Wall, New Jersey. We'll be there next Saturday, a week from today. And who knows what we'll do for a, we'll do probably a little bit of a collab video, or you'll see each other on the other's videos and things like that. I'm not going to be really that set up for doing streaming video. It's actually more of a a trip to me to pick up some items and not use Chris as a long-term storage location for those systems I've got within the Washington, D.C. area, and get that stuff and bring it home. But who knows? We might be able to do a little bit of a stream, or certainly Chris will do videos for his part of the events and who he sees and the systems and everything else too. And I'll be kind of sticking to him like glue. I know he's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it too. I'm glad that the plans of that trip have firmed up quite a bit. That are in a much better reality for me to go over there, and I'm happy to go over there and be able to see an event like that. It's certainly of that nature. This is about the first meet that I've gone through that is focused on computers in particular. I'll have to see what branding I can come up with for passing around business cards, just the way that Chris will, and getting a little bit of our details on our channel out there to people that be interested in watching videos and subscribing to our channels. The systems I'm picking up there when I'm back there, I've actually got a working AS400. Looks to be in very nice condition that I'm picking up. It's got a console on it. He's got a lot of literature and disc and things like that. Otherwise, I don't know what the seller that I got this from, I don't know what he used the system for, but it's going to be a nice system for me because I'm able to that I'll be able to do the like the Twin-X emulation that I've been doing a lot, or setting up the terminals for the old System 34, System 36, System 38s, AS400s, and I'll be able to use that AS400 as a host and go through to where I might be able to get some boards set up in terminal emulation. Of course, I've got the microchannel boards just off the screen, but this is where I've got the I recently went through on the mainframe and mini computer group. These are, and you've known the computers for a long time, the AST Research. They had the Bravo line back in 286 systems and 386SX. Had the Advantage stuff. They had laptops, all that back in the day. But they also made emulation boards for the getting connected onto those so-called mini computers or mid-range computers of the System 32, 34, 36, System 38s, AS400s. But they made these emulation boards. You make your nice expensive computer into a cheap terminal, and so it can connect onto one of those hosts. A lot of the time, these are even the enhanced versions were multi-session. So you could go through, you didn't have the nice big screens like they have today, but you could go through and you could toggle by keyboard to the various sessions. So your system acted like more than one terminal, and typically a lot of the time you had a printer session on there as well. So you could go through and you could print what you had on the screen. But going through and I've still got to archive these diskettes. These even being 720 KB diskettes, which are easy enough, but I've got some others that are 5 1/4 inch 360 KB diskettes that I've got to archive, and I'll have to pull out the MOL 30 with the external floppy drive and transfer that over to a 720 KB diskette and then be able to archive them. And I'm able to use the WinImage on my tweener system I have over here, and that's part of the reason why I've got it out as well. But that'll be real handy for me for that AS400, getting that in. And I've got a question I'll get to in just a moment here. And I've got a also have where I'm and that was a lot of the communication last night. I've got an info window to very nice terminal, and it's set up for TwinX. And those are the later terminals that IBM produced, and so I'm picking that up as well, and that'll give me a nice terminal, not having to do the emulation and everything else otherwise to the host. So I've got that, and then on the way back, I'm picking up the multi-station in Dallas that I had a friend pick up from a seller that's now dropped off the Facebook group. I've got to go through, and I did the welcome message of the 7 new people, and he's dropped the group after he sold the item, which is fine. He's getting out of it. So I've got a number of those systems. It's going to really be nice to get in and work with once I get back home. Hopefully that won't take me a week to get home. It'll take me just hopefully at most a half a week. But that's the big trip that's planned for next week. So I'm going to go through, and we're coming up on just probably the close of the hour of the live stream. And I had a question in the chat, and it says, I wonder what your holy grail system, IBM's or otherwise. So on the IBM side, the holy grail, and I am getting, that's the other aspect, is Chris has the other system I'm picking up is a Model 90. It's an 8590, and it's got the 386DX 20 megahertz complex in it. And that was the low-end Model 90 that was called Special Bid. It's a submodel of 401, and the leading 4 of that submodel means a special bid model. And there was an insurance company, I think it was Aetna, and I'm trying to think of the other company that bought the special bid systems for the small 90s, and those haven't been available as well. I don't know if they just went through once they were taken out of service, where they were scrapped or what, but those have not been very available. There's been parts and pieces that have cropped up that people have gone through and tried to rebuild those. In this case, the model I'm getting in is brand new in box, and it is so very nice condition, and it's an assembled system, all the correct badges, everything else. And so that's going to be very helpful in having that complete system to analyze. But no, and I do have that now. I've purchased that, picking it up, and certainly that'll be on video. That's not necessarily my holy grail model, although it's quite high in the placement of something that's certainly desirable from a collection view. Probably the holy grail is the PS2 model 195 and 295. And you say, well, wow, what's that extra digit doing in there, that lean digit? I'm used to Model 95s, which are certainly very heavily desired systems. But IBM had a larger case that it was about twice as wide as the Model 95. That they had a different planar and complex scheme. In some of it, it's been kind of a little bit ridiculed of how IBM had the processor boards and stuff like that kind of hanging loose or looser than they should have been, not retained or hanging upside down in those systems. But the 195 and 295 and that leading digit changes for the CPUs. The 295 was actually a dual 486 server system from IBM, and we have lots of images of those. I think even Thomas has probably some, and I can go through and search easily on his page, on his site. Let's put model in there as well. Okay. And there's images of these things around. There's more information of, and this is more, they're viewed almost as more of the PC server line. But just to give some images of that stuff, I'll put the link up. And so people can kind of review that of what those systems look like. I'm aware of some, at least some parts and pieces to those that someone has that I don't think it's a complete operational system. Now, some of that stuff, and even there's pictures. In fact, I've got a picture. I've got the book. In fact, I think I've got the book handy. I don't know if I moved it or not. I don't see it right off the bat. That also shows a picture of the 295s, even a bunch of them arranged in the big rooms, like ultimately what would be a server room of the time of the day, of back when, by IBM, and I think it was Boca Raton, for the number of systems that are in that room of those 195s and 295s. It's amazing that those things, you can't find them out there. And of course, IBM had a lot of time where the licensing, where they just leased those systems, and when the lease was up, when they went through and that they're winding down that line or whatever, they would go through and collect them from the location and destroy them or whatever else they did. They weren't customer units, and that's very similar to like what I've shown for like the P/370 adapters, or P/390s. Those were the so-called mainframe on an adapter. Those were what you stuck in the PC server that emulated the mainframe functionality at a much lower level, of course. And quite often at times, IBM leased those adapters out. And so when the contract ended, they went through and they collected all that stuff up. And I mean, I've got adapters that escaped from that, that collection. And I don't, I hope IBM isn't necessarily interested in collecting those back at this point of showing up, having some red meat-eating lawyers showing up at my doorstep and saying, give us those adapters back. That's IBM property. Yeah, that's my holy grail. It'd be nice to have for historical purposes of those that server 195 or 295 that's set up to go through and show the world of a complete system of, you know, those being very rare models. I don't even know if there's announcement letters in there of whether that stuff was actually released. IBM had a lot of designs, of course, that were never released out there in the wild or to the public or to companies, to individuals out there. And so that's why those systems are rare today. But we've gone over an hour of the live stream. I'm happy for everyone that that showed up and tuned in to watch this live stream. And again, and even at the last one, I wasn't sure whether I'd go back to the Facebook format for that one time a month as well, of conducting the live stream from there. I have to see once I get back when I do the Facebook stream as well, because as I say, that next week I'm me and Chris are at VCF East. There'll be some content on that as we go through and do that, and but there won't be a live stream from this setting of me sitting in my studio. And then I'll just have to go through from 2 weeks from now of what planning it is for that live stream. Probably back here on YouTube to go through, and I'll do a Facebook stream at some point. But really, that is all I have for now. Thank you for the questions, tuning in. And that's all I have for now. So thank you. Bye.